GG, I am DJ John Tavar, Dinner at the Roundtable Podcast, your source to knowledge. Today is a special segment. I want to talk about our political system, just the history, especially that election's coming up, and just, ask the key question, right? Are we living in a real democracy? So let's just start, our system of government. The United States, we declare ourselves to be a democratic country, a democracy. So let's start with the definition of what is a democracy. But before we do that, let's talk about the history behind democracy. Democracy emerged in about 500 BC in Greece. And Greece is highly recognized as the cradle of the Western civilization. And the term democracy comes from the Greeks. Demo meaning people, and krate meaning power or rule, which is democracy, ruled by the people. However, though, here in the United States, we do not practice democracy the way it's defined. In a direct democracy, you have a say-so. You speak for yourself. You don't have representatives that speak on your behalf, and you actually participate in the decision making of your country. But here, the public really has no say when it comes to the critical decisions that are made by those who are elected. So basically, in other words, you're giving someone else the power to speak for you. And in a real democracy, people have the right to get together and democratically, decide how they want to live. But unfortunately, we live in a plutocracy, and that's just the harsh reality of what it is. By now, I think all of us should really understand the system of government that we live in under, and who actually really runs it. And it's not our government officials. It's the elites, people that are on top. If you want to call it the 1% or whatever, but it's the elites. They basically give us this illusion of just putting two people in front of our eyes and have them just go back and forth with each other and just make arguments about this person, that person. But it's really designed to keep people distracted. And not really question the system itself. And how you make the public, clueless, how you make them, so distracted. One thing is that they understand how to really keep the public as uninformed as possible on relevant issues that have an impact on our daily lives. And, one thing, it starts with education, indoctrination. That's the biggest key of keeping people dumbed down. Not really educating people to become critical, logical thinkers. Not to educate them of how to think, but what to think. And the key thing here, how to be obedient. Obedience is something that's key of keeping control of a population, of teaching people obedience. The late, Howard Zinn, the great historian said, civil disobedience is not our problem. Our problem is civil obedience. And that is very true. It's very true, where, the system really focuses on, indoctrinating people to become workers and consumers. And not to, critically think. George Carlin once said too, they want people to be smart enough to run the papers, but dumb enough to, to question the things around them. And that's just the harsh reality of what it is. That's just the harsh reality. And this is why, things are still the way they are. This is not by, a coincidence, it's by design. Because again, you can't control a population that knows how to think. You can't, there's no way you can. But, again, they know how to really understand, how to really keep the population under control. And another way too is through economics. Keep people distracted by debt. The on and off, job losses going. And I think the most important thing, especially like me, that I was a psychology major in undergrad, and one thing I definitely learned as a psych major, how the human mind works. And one thing I've learned is that ignorance works. When you actually educate someone to be ignorant, which means you reward stupidity, you keep people closed-minded, and that's how it works. And also the herd psychology where, you basically follow the crowd. They put that fear in you that you can't stand out. You have to follow the crowd, and you can't question an authority. And again, it goes back with obedience. And that's one of the things I've learned. One of the most effective ways to control the human thought is to create a deep fear of social rejection. So you don't want to stand out. You don't want to be, that person that's, isolated. And we done seen this in so many studies where they study people and they just know that it's the wrong thing to do, but because the other group of people are doing it, they'll just do it because they see the other people doing it. And that's all the psyche. That's all psyche. That's all it is. Going back to the political system, now that the election's coming up, I always get this question, am I voting? I'm a big, I have a big say about voting, which I'm not going to really elaborate too much. I definitely want to hold it for like a different episode. But what I would say, if you're going to vote, vote for someone that has a clear agenda. I think we have a tendency, historically, to really vote for people's personalities and just kind of like think that this person is really, because you like the person or you think this person will be a good fit, whatever the case is. But the harsh reality is this, though, in all honesty. When it comes to voting, politicians don't really rely on votes. They really rely on money. Money, because money changes everything. And this is why, it's not what I believe, it's what I know, that this is why we cannot have an ethical government. As long as money is, is used as a tool to control politicians' decision making. Especially, once it became actually legal, where the Supreme Court made it legal to have, unlimited spending money for campaigns. So there's no limit. So politicians rely, they actually rely more on money than they do on votes. And that's just the truth, So I'm not interested, about the left or the right, or the Republicans or Democrats. I call it demo publics. That's how I call them, what I'm saying? Because they're both on the same team. Because if you really think about this, their ideas are not that different. The agenda is pretty much the same. And I mean, what I'm really interested is how, this democracy that people still think they were living under blindly accept this, that we actually live in a democracy. And then, when you think about, as far as like the Constitution, we still going by something that was written over 200 years ago. I mean, everything has evolved, but yet our system of government has not evolved yet. You ever thought about that? Everything has evolved from technology, from the way we live. Just think about it. But our system of government has not evolved yet. And we got to question that. We have to really question that, how we have evolved with everything else around us, but our system of government has yet evolved. So that's something that's key to think about. You know what I'm saying? And I always say this. I mean, if you ever get invaded by a superior species from another galaxy, I can only imagine how they're going to look at us, how we live. It's like almost the same way how we look at people from the past, how they lived and how they treated their people. Where we we're baffled by that. So I can only imagine how they're going to look at us and the way we live today. Because again, though, by definition, we do not live in a real democracy. I mean, and it's just so sad that, we keep, thinking about, how we still live in this system that's fair. And we still rely on people to lead us. And that's one question too, like why we rely on people to lead us when we should be our own leaders and take more ownership of ourselves. Because in all honesty, there is no elected official that's going to really save you. The only person that can really save you is yourself. And this is why when it comes to voting for me, my thing is this. I'm more concerned about taking care of myself. And what I would suggest and advise to everyone is build your own economy, beginning with buying your own land. My brother and I, we spoke about this a few times, and we're going to definitely get involved in doing this. We're going to start, buying lands. We're going to start buying lands and create our own economy. Because again, though, we can't rely on a system that's not designed for your best interest. And this is the only way I think that we're able to really survive, because even with this COVID-19, it's just very evident that the government can't save you. It's evident. The struggle right now with so many, people right now struggling. This is why we have to build our own. We have to build our own, you know. And I mean, it's the system it is. It's how the system is. So we got to really think about that. And again, though, you know, we like I don't buy this lip service by these politicians, because in actuality too, I still can't believe that, you know, first of all, we still have a leader. And what I mean by that, giving one individual so much power, where I'm thinking to myself, damn, we still live in the days of kings and queens and dictators, you know, because even the U.S. president, who's the highest position in office, has the power to make executive decisions where he don't care about, you know, he doesn't need approval from the Congress, from you. He could just make that decision. You know what I'm saying? So that's something that, I mean, I never understood that. You know, it's 2020 and we still living under this idea of having a leader like this. You know, and again, though, you know, it's just sad too, because when it comes to like these campaigns too, there is no legal obligation by law that these politicians have to fulfill their promises that they made during their campaign. So they don't have to do nothing. They could sell you all this dream, and then once they get elected, they don't have to fulfill none of those promises. There is no legal obligations. You know what I'm saying? There's no legal obligations. So it's misleading. It's very misleading, and we got to really think about that. We got to really, really start to think about this system. And then we live in this two-party system. Like, I never understood this, where we have this two-party system, which I call it a one-party system, because again, though, you know, the Demopublics, they basically work together. You know what I'm saying? They're trying to create this whole friction that they have different ideas, but at the end of the day, they still pretty much have the same agenda. And basically, they just put different faces each 4 years or 8 years of the person reelected. And you know what I'm saying? But the agenda is still the same. You know, us as people, as you know, you want to call it color, we've been voting since the 14th Amendment. But have you seen any systemic change ever since then? Have you? You know what I'm saying? I mean, I'm just saying, historically speaking, have you seen any systemic change since the 14th Amendment was passed? And that was what, in 1868? Sorry, over 150 years? That's crazy. You know? So we got to start thinking about this, because I'm not with this whole thing of voting for the lesser evil. I'm not with that. I'm not with that. You know what I'm saying? Because at the end of the day, it's an illusion. You know, it's crazy. You know, I mean, we're still dealing with racism. We're still dealing with poverty. We're still dealing with police brutality. You know what I'm saying? Like, you got to be kidding me. You know what I'm saying? Have you seen any systemic change still? That's just the harsh reality. That's what it is. You know what I'm saying? And this whole two-party farce thing, again, though, it gives you the illusion of choice. As you have, like, quote-unquote, you have a choice. You know what I'm saying? But, you know, it purposely oppresses the other political parties. Because have you thought about this? How come we never see any other third parties participate in these debates? You know why? Because the Commission of Presidential Debates, the CPD, which is a privately owned corporation, are the ones who actually decide who's going to participate in the debate and what type of questions are going to be given in the debate. Look that up. The Commission of Presidential Debates, the CPD. So we got to think about that. You know what I'm saying? This is, again, though, we got to start questioning this political system. We have to. Especially, I mean, I think enough is enough already. You know, because again, though, you know, living under this two-party system, it's really a two-party dictatorship where it's basically controlled by two political parties. It's really a dictatorship. You know what I'm saying? We never saw, in my lifetime, and I'm pretty sure in your lifetime, have you ever saw any other political party that really was in charge? Because all the social change that we see throughout history, from the civil rights movement, from the women's suffrage movement, from child labor laws, all came from the push of third political parties. And that's just the reality of it. You know what I'm saying? And that's what it is. So, I mean, I don't buy this whole, this thing that we have a choice. It's an illusion. I mean, the great, George Carlin once said, the things that matter in this country has been reduced in choice. There are only two political parties, and there are a handful of insurance companies, and there are 6-7 information centers. But if you want a bagel, there's about 23 different flavors. You know what I'm saying? Because you have the illusion of choice. And you have no choice. You have owners. And that's just the harsh reality. You know, these people are owned. The majority of these politicians that you definitely put a lot of faith in, they are owned. And let's not even get into this electoral fraud, which is another thing. I mean, it's ridiculous that we still live under that voting system. You know what I'm saying? And I've been personally told, you know, like people that, you know, that are very close to me. They told me that, listen, be careful, Jay. Be careful. Because, you know, when you're speaking out, you know, anyone who speculates about the obvious power, manipulation, and corruption, and you start to, you know, create a large following, you know, they're going to find a way to quiet you down. So you better be careful. You know what I mean, people have done, you know, people that I definitely have honest respect for have told me that. You know what I'm saying? But, you know what I'm saying? I mean, I got to speak out. I got to speak what's inside of me. And I'm not going to let this, you know, ride by me. Because, I mean, for me, I mean, my whole experience, my struggle coming up and being born here. And I'm still going through some things that, I mean, it's just going through that hump because of how the system has been such designed to keep that barricade. And we got to make this change. We definitely have to make this change. And I mean, I'm just going to like end it off like that because honestly, it's going to go deeper. We're going to definitely have a full episode about the political system itself. But I want to end it off with a final thought. My final thought, I think you guys kind of, you know, could sum it up yourselves. Democracy is an illusion. It's these giant corporations that, you know, really run the world and influences the decisions that are made by our elected officials. So as long as money can be used as an influence to, you know, persuade, you know, lawmakers to make certain decisions, you know, we will never live in a ethical government, let alone a real democracy. So, you know, and I hope I don't get, you know, in trouble for this because again, though, people have done told me, man, you gotta quiet down, Jay, sometimes, man, you're speaking out too much. But I have to speak the real, you know, definitely got to speak the real, you know, and I hope that, you know, my First Amendment could protect me, you know, freedom of speech. But I mean, I suffer too much, you know what I'm saying? I got screwed over a lot of times in my life, and it's based on how the system is designed, you know, especially me as a person that's not looked upon as, but rather inferior because of the history of people that look like me and how it was designed to basically keep me down. I can't go and let this ride no more. So, I mean, again, though, I mean, this is why, I mean, this is my purpose, of really really trying to make a change for not just me, but for everyone, and make this world more pleasant to live in. Because, again, we are spiritual beings living a human experience. But unfortunately, right now, you know, ego, power, you know, corruption, you know, has gotten away from us from really progressing as a society, as beings living on this planet that we call Earth. So I'm going to sign off. DJ John Tavar, you know what I'm saying? Dinner at the Roundtable Podcast. You know, Chris Ryder, you know what I'm saying? Catch us every Monday evening, 7:30. But definitely going to be a future episode about political system. And just keep supporting, you know what I'm saying, true knowledge, you know what I'm saying? Things that I always say that, you know, our goal here is to basically talk about relevant things that have an impact on our daily lives and just share that awareness, spread that awareness, and share that knowledge. So, signing off, DJ John Tavar. Peace out. I am DJ John Tavar with my co-host, Chris Ryder. We are Dinner at the Roundtable Podcast, your source to knowledge. Make sure you click like, share, subscribe to our YouTube channel on the lower right-hand side. We appreciate the support. Peace out.